Hello and welcome to Bible Together again, because we've already recorded part of this and it didn't work properly. So we're starting again. We're looking at Joshua chapter 5, and depending on how much time we have, Joshua chapter 6. Depends on how quickly we get through all this. How are you doing, my dear?
I am better than I was last week. I'm still recovering, so if I cough or sneeze, please forgive me.
Yes, my wife came home from camp sick, and so when Joshua 4 went live, it was a good thing we had to record it ahead of time because she was dying. But we're here. We're happy to be here. And we're going to look at Joshua chapter 5, starting here with verse 1. When all the Amorite kings west of the Jordan and all the Canaanite kings who lived along the Mediterranean coast heard how the Lord had dried up the Jordan River so the people of Israel could cross, they lost heart and were paralyzed with fear because of them.
Okay.
That
Earlier, when we went through this before, he asked me to look up the word paralyzed.
right.
It's not there. It's not the word that is in the original text. It says that basically their spirit had left them. Here, let me see if I can get exactly what it said.
So might be a good time to talk about translational decisions.
Mm-hmm.
So the way that this format works is we just read through the Bible. We don't read this. Neither of us are studying Joshua right now in particular, but we sort of do this the way we would do our devotions, where we just read through it and we pray and we see what God has for us from that section that day. And we have found that a lot of the times we end up discussing our devotions or our reading or something we're studying or working on. And the process of the discussion tends to draw other things out. And so I think God uses that to just help illuminate what he's trying to show to you.
Yeah.
But how was I saying that? Bible translations. Or you
And the
say
choices.
first.
Oh, well, the context is it said that, so they lost heart and were paralyzed with fear. It says that their hearts melted and there was no spirit in them any longer.
So that doesn't really mean a whole lot, like in English. If I said to somebody on the street, hey, you look like your spirit left you, they would probably look at me and go, huh?
Oh, yeah, I see what you mean. But for the Hebrew people,
Right.
they didn't have a really good idea of the physical body. Like they didn't have a proper medical understanding of how we understand today where things are in your body. Can you explain a bit more?
They were bad at biology.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Like they thought your feelings came from your stomach and your thought came from your heart, and they were just bad at biology.
Mm-hmm.
And so they would never have used the word paralyzed because we think of very like physiological things when we talk about paralyzed, but their idea of a paralytic would have been slightly different.
Yeah, I think so.
They wouldn't have necessarily known what the cause was all the time. There was a pretty grand assumption of sin. But why do the translators choose the word paralyzed? Is because it conveys to us something similar that they would have felt or understood.
Yeah, I think so.
So when we look up, as we're reading, we'll see things. And just in spending time in the Bible over the last decade and a half or so, we have a tendency to go, oh, I wonder what the original wording was of this, because we've started to pick out like, oh, their lexicon didn't include a great understanding of biology. So would they have really used the word paralyzed? When, old translations would have said something like they loosed their bowels, and that just meant they defecated themselves.
Yeah.
And so you sort of start to pick up on some of the translational nuances. You may not know why they're there, but you sort of see like, oh, that might have been something else. That doesn't make the translation bad.
Right.
The idea of Bible translations is they're trying to convey not just what the original audiences heard, but understood and felt.
Mm-hmm.
But English has hundreds of millions of more words and variations than Hebrew does. And so the Hebrew understanding and feeling came much, much more in context of how the word was used in a sentence and where it was used and how many times it was used. And if you translated it word for word, it wouldn't make a ton of sense. So the example we've seen a lot recently is the passage that Westhoff uses to talk about translational decisions, where it refers to God as being slow to anger and wise.
Mm.
But the original wording is God is long of nose, which means nothing to a modern American. But to a Hebrew person, it was an idiom, and they understood what it meant to be patient and wise and all that. So when we look up original words, it's not to discredit a translation. It's to help us figure out why the translators are choosing those things.
Right.
And sometimes it just lends a bit of an extra like color or a bit more imagery to what the Bible is saying in English, and it helps us get a little deeper.
Right.
I would never use it to argue against a translation. That's the people who do these things are pretty darn smart.
Yeah.
So they're paralyzed because they know Israel's coming. So at that time, the Lord told Joshua, make flint knives and circumcise this generation of Israelites. So Joshua made flint knives and circumcised the entire male population of Israel at Gibeath Haraloth. Joshua had to circumcise them because all the men who were old enough to fight in battle when they left Egypt had died in the wilderness. Those who left Egypt had all been circumcised, but none of them born after the Exodus during the years of the wilderness had been circumcised. So this is about where we got to, and I was trying to figure out why on earth they haven't been circumcised. We know that Abraham received the covenant of circumcision and passed that on a bit, but clearly when they're in slavery, that may or may not have faded to some degree. I don't know.
Oh, so I had thought maybe the reason why they weren't circumcised had to do with. No, I guess that doesn't make sense. I thought because maybe the culture of Egypt had maybe been a part of that, but Moses was circumcised, and I'm guessing the elders were circumcised because it just says during the time that they were in the wilderness.
So it sort of feels like the circumcision stopped while they were in the wilderness. My theory, without looking into it any deeper, is what I know of their time in the wilderness and that generation that was told they were going to die in the wilderness, it was because of disobedience to God.
Okay.
Right? Like that group that wandered and they had to all die before they could leave. It was because of their great disobedience towards God. It was because of the rebellion against Aaron. It was because, right?
But why this new generation? Why weren't they circumcised?
I think it's indicative of a life led in disobedience to God. The covenant is a sign of their commitment to God, right? It's a covenant of
Maybe
circumcision.
because this is happening right before they go into the promised land. Maybe they wanted to make a big deal out of it, make it special or something. But
they should have been circumcised already. Like somewhere along the line, that their parents didn't follow the covenant of circumcision.
but why wouldn't Moses?
I mean, I don't think it was Moses' job.
Somebody would have to tell you to stop doing that
No,
because
that's my
you're
point.
supposed to be circumcised at like 8 days old or.
Right, but it is indicative of their unfaithfulness and of their disobedience as they were in the wilderness. Which is why God said, okay, this generation is going to die and I'm going to raise up a new generation.
Well, I looked it up because it says to make flint knives. And the flint knife, because I was like, why? Why a flint knife? What is. So the first,
Because it's dull.
I believe, when Abraham. Oh, I'm not certain. I know it was with Moses. Sorry, when we were looking up in Exodus, it said to use a flint knife. I'd have to look back to see if Abraham used a flint knife. But the reason why they used a flint knife is because that material was readily available, and some people thought because it's naturally smooth when you break it to do uh like it's smooth, but when you break it, it has a very sharp edge that will keep, is what it says.
So I think the importance here is it's a knife,
Yeah,
right? There weren't other knives.
right.
You could use anything jagged and cut something,
Mhm.
but the process of circumcision was not designed to be mutilatory. It wasn't designed to be
Right.
cruel. So use a knife, use something sharp and that can make a clean cut.
Mhm.
Um, we think flint's weird because we know what knives are, but the Hebrew people at this point, they don't have a great understanding of metallurgy. What
No.
they do know is what was given to them to build the tabernacle, the knowledge of working with bronze and copper and gold,
Mhm.
which is soft metals, and it's not quite the same as working with iron. So you're not going to make an iron knife.
Right.
And they probably didn't have any they could cut into a circumcising dagger. So stone, which is also flint, is a stone that predominantly exists readily available next to rivers.
Oh, okay.
And they just left the Jordan, so they probably have some flint around.
Well, and I think there's something about this that maybe we're not capturing because once you do this procedure, you need time to recover. You
There's a big faith element.
you think like weeks?
I would imagine, as a grown adult. Well, I know this isn't even close to the same thing, but if you're an adult and you get a vasectomy, it takes, with modern medicine, weeks to fully recover,
Right.
months to fully recover, right? Like,
I wasn't trying to poke fun. It's just
no, I know.
um
It seems like a bad thing to do right before a battle.
yeah, that's why I think it is a faith thing, especially I don't know, like, is Jericho right after this? Oh.
Yes.
So the first battle after circumcision is one where you have to walk
Yeah.
around and around and around.
Which at least isn't as strenuous as fighting and lunging
Yeah,
and sprinting.
but walking probably isn't great after that.
But walking can be rehabilitative too, right?
Okay.
It's better than, I mean, it's better than lunging with the spear.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if anyone has ever.
Put those two things together.
Yeah.
That's cool. So they have to go in faith, knowing there's a battle coming, and then God goes, "But don't worry, you just gotta walk around for a while." But they do run up into the city. I'm not sure how strenuous that part is.
Yeah.
We'll get to that. The Israelites had traveled the wilderness for 40 years until all the men who were old enough to fight in battle when they left Egypt had died. For they had disobeyed the Lord. There we go. We were talking about that. And the Lord vowed he would not let them enter the land they had sworn to give us, and a land flowing with milk and honey. So just to go back to that, though, I think what we learn by the fact that the entire generation hadn't been circumcised is that they didn't just, build a calf and worship it once. They didn't just revolt against Aaron once.
Oh no, it was
A lifestyle of disobedience.
it was a multitude of things.
It's not just they made a mistake. I think what we see, they weren't following God's instructions at all.
Yeah.
A lot of them. So Joshua circumcised their sons. He had to do it all. That's a long day. Those who had grown up to take their father's places, for they had not been circumcised on the way to the promised land. After all the males had been circumcised, they rested in the camp until they were healed. Okay.
Well, still,
Yeah.
I mean,
It still requires a great element of faith to go, we can't do this right now.
we
We
gotta
gotta
do
go
this right
straight.
before we got a battle. Well, you don't know what's gonna happen between that and the time of the battle.
Right.
You don't know what to expect or. Yeah.
Right. Then the Lord Joshua said to Joshua, "Today I have rolled away the shame of your slavery in Egypt."
Oh, that's curious.
Yeah, the wording.
Rolled away.
So that this place has been called Gilgal to this day. When the Israelites were camped at Gilgal on the plains of Jericho, they celebrated Passover on the evening of the 14th day of the first month.
It does say rolled away, but that is galal. I'm gonna
Gilgal.
no.
So it comes. No, I know. So that makes sense as to why the place is called Gilgal. It comes from that word.
Rolled away. Hold on. I'm gonna check this out. This word. To roll away, to roll up. Wonder what the context of that is. What does... I think it has something to do with stones.
I think he says he was rolled away like a stone, right?
But I can't.
I have rolled away the shame. Oh, no, just as I've rolled away the shame of Egypt.
Mm.
Okay.
Yeah.
The very next day, they began to eat unleavened bread and roasted grain harvested from the land. No manna appeared on the day they first ate from the crops of the land, and it was never seen again. For from that time on, the Israelites ate from the crops of Canaan. It's kind of a sad day, right?
Yeah. Something that they had been, for this generation, they had been used to their whole lives. Gone forever. I don't think I can't think of anything to compare that to in my life. Something that I had and will never have again. Like, I'm trying to think of something from my childhood
Yeah.
that just doesn't exist anymore. Probably like Dunkaroos or something.
So Dunkaroos popped into my head too.
Did it really?
But we found them recently, right?
Yeah,
a
we
couple
did.
years ago. We found them
They
at a gas
started
station
making
on the
them
way home
again.
from Florida, and they were awful. It was I wished I had never had them again. Oh. I'm thinking like I have a bit of an advantage because there's stuff that we would have had in Canada that they don't sell down here.
Yeah.
But like as much as I have fond memories, none of it's like good.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, and it's interesting because when they first started with manna, not too long after they received it, did they start complaining about it, how much they hated only being able to eat that.
yeah.
And I wonder how this group, were they happy about having different food? Or was it like, was it sad? Was it like, oh man, this comfort, this thing that sustained us is gone? And it's a sad day, maybe.
Well, this generation was born in the wilderness.
Yeah, that's all they knew.
So now that food isn't coming from the sky, is this like that's actually more abnormal for them than food coming from the sky?
Yeah.
Right? Like,
But they know food comes from the ground, like from crops and
but
food.
they would have been told it like an old wives' tale.
Oh, I guess you're right.
All right, like, well, we were in Egypt, we had to grow our own food. Like, it's not, it's not something that they might necessarily all would have really appreciated.
Yeah. I can't think of anything that it would be remotely something.
It's kind of like the oranges in your family compound.
It's our family, some of our family,
They share a property.
they all live on the property. That's totally normal for some people. But there was an orange grove, and one winter it totally froze the entire grove, and they were all ruined. And it was quite sad because you used to be able to just walk up to a tree and there would always be fruit.
Not anymore.
It's
gone.
Not anymore. They're gone. Yeah.
When Joshua was near the town of Jericho, he looked up and saw a man standing in front of him with a sword in hand.
Oh, yes, this is cool.
Joshua went up to him and demanded, "Are you friend or foe?" "Neither one," he replied. "I am the commander of the Lord's army." At this, Joshua fell with his face to the ground in reverence. "I am at your command," Joshua said. "What do you want your servant to do?"
Oh man. Are you friend or foe? Neither.
This is a bold approach, right?
Demanded. He demanded. But I guess he is the leader of a large group of people.
And there's one person in front of him.
Yeah.
But what's interesting, so I don't know if this is exactly what's happening here. There's a
Yeah, we don't.
quality of God. This isn't God, but there's a quality of God that is he's like a self-fulfilling person, which is probably not the right way of saying that. Um, the authority of God, when encountered in its fullness, isn't something that needs validation. So we live in a world where everything we say, well, it used to be if I made a claim, I had to back it up. Nowadays, you can pretty much say whatever you want and just get angry if people don't believe you.
Right.
But there was a point in time where facts required defense, right? But what we believe about God is it's not that. So when God appears to Abraham, is the example I used recently in church. When he appears to Abram knows. He doesn't know anything about God. His father, we learn, is a pagan and not somebody who was probably conveying the old family history to him. And so when God shows up and says, Abram, get up and go, and he goes, like the authority of God is not in question. And so anytime we see in the Bible God validate himself, it's because of human failures. I'm the God of your fathers, Abraham, Egypt, right? It's not because they don't think this booming voice or this quiet voice or this authoritative presence isn't God. They just don't know what to do with it because they're so sinful. And so I think it's interesting that when this angel shows up, Joshua has to ask who he is. He's not God, so he doesn't necessarily carry that weight of authority. But when he shows up and the angel says who he is, there's no question, right? There's zero concern or there's zero question in Joshua's mind that he's telling the truth. I just think like today, if somebody showed up in your home and said, I'm the commander of the army of God, you would kind of go, prove it. Or no, I'm not buying what you're selling, right? Like it's different. And we know this is true because Jesus even says, right, you're going to miss him and that there'll be opportunities to minister to his people and you're going to miss it or something like that, right? Am I going crazy?
No, I think you're right. I'm just trying to find some.
But if you asked him to prove it, I'm not sure it would go great.
No.
How does the commander of an army prove he's the commander of an army? He summoned the army.
I think this person already has a presence.
Yes, that was what I was.
Or like for Joshua to come up and demand, he has a sword in hand. But I can't imagine that it's in like a defensive stance. It's just kind of like, but he has enough presence for the leader to come and say, are you for us or against us? Because they just don't know. But whenever I have these, because these are this is a tiny passage.
Tiny section.
There's like 3 verses. And the Bible is full of these little, I don't even know what to call it. But these are the tiny little things that you forget until you read it again, I think. And you're like, oh my gosh, this is really interesting. And I always mark these. Uh, I have a color system, but I mark these in a color I don't particularly use all the time to hope that I can remember these things because they're really interesting.
This is where we want that color-coded Bible, right?
Yes.
If somehow a publisher ever sees this.
There is, I can't remember what it's called now. I think it's called
There is
the
a color code Bible, but it's for the King James only.
Yeah, King. Yeah.
And so we want a color-coded Bible that's not like, because lots of Bibles have the words of Jesus in red.
Yeah.
Which I heard an interesting argument against recently.
Oh.
This is really besides the point, but I did hear a Christian that I respect arguing that they don't like the words in red Bible because it overemphasizes a particular subset of the words of God. And so what happened is you see like, well, Jesus is talking, these are important, which inherently means the rest of the Bible isn't Jesus and isn't important. And it has had a very long and slow effect on our culture. So but there's nothing wrong with the words in red. I would caution people to be careful. It doesn't mean the rest of the Bible isn't the word of God, or somehow the words of Jesus on earth are more weighty than the rest of Scripture. It's all
What
the
the
words of
point of
Jesus.
putting them in red was at first? Was it to
I
tell
looked
you?
it up,
Okay.
and I don't quite remember, but it was a project of one guy, and it got published eventually. It was in the early 1900s, but I looked it up when we were looking for a color-coded Bible.
Oh, okay.
So it was interesting. We want a Bible that has, like, every time God speaks, it's got a highlight or a certain color.
So I have attempted in my own to start doing that in my Bible because I've read through this Bible making my own notes once, and now I'm into the second time of this Bible. And I tried to start underlining what I thought was God speaking. It's really hard
Yeah.
because
Sometimes it's the voice of God. Sometimes it's a
yes,
messenger.
sometimes the whole passage says, "And the Lord said to Moses," and then 20 verses of
And
stuff to
like
do.
you get into Deuteronomy, and Moses is conveying God's message to him, but
Yeah.
you don't get the setup of it. And a lot of Deuteronomy is interesting because you don't always get, and then God said, it's a message from Moses. So some of it is like that, but it's all God's message.
Sometimes you get, 2 or 3 verses that is the Lord speaking, but then the rest of it is, you it's from the Lord, it's directed to the people, but you don't know if the words themselves are something he said or something Moses is conveying to the people. So I'm trying. Um, I'm really enjoying it because when I look back, I could see like most Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, and Numbers is where I am right now. Most of it's red, um, because I put God's words in red, and well, I have a whole color system. But anyways, it's really interesting, and this encounter with the angel, like, because there's a ton of these like encounters, I put in this color blue.
That's blue.
It's probably turquoise or cyan, like Caleb likes to say. Everything is silent cyan to Caleb. That's a tangent.
There's nothing blue in here to compare. It's not blue. It's more green than blue, but
This
anyways.
is not green. Anyways.
It is an interesting exercise. If you're ever looking for like a way of staying engaged in the Bible, get a Bible that you can use either digitally or physically that you can mark up. And this isn't like, I'm going to use a particular method. What's the method where you put the different dots and things around it for different, like, here's a verb here, or like
yes. Oh my gosh.
inductive Bible studies.
Inductive, yeah.
Where the thing I don't like about inductive Bible studies is is by the end of it, your entire Bible is covered in something.
Yeah.
Like, there's very little you don't highlight in an inductive Bible study, especially in the New Testament. But yeah, just say like, all right, from now on, everything I see from God, everything I see from Jesus, everything I see from an angel, every prophecy, whatever it is, like you just make a bookmark with the colors on it.
I tried to find a system because I have about
Ask ChatGPT to do it.
4 or 5 colors that I use, but I really mainly wind up using 2 colors most of the time, and one is just underlining the things that I find interesting, which is in just a regular blue, a dark blue
Right.
pen, and then the red is everything that I think God is saying. And the other colors, um, honestly, it was just something that I found. It wasn't anything in particular, just I liked what it said. If anyone's interested, I could share that, but honestly, it's gotta be something that you enjoy doing, and it has to work for you. Um, but I really enjoy underlining my Bible because I can flip through it, and I can find those things very easily based on the colors.
The commander of the Lord's army replied, "Take off your sandals, for the place where you are standing is holy." Joshua did as he was told. That is an interesting testimony. I didn't realize we were one verse from the end there.
I was gonna tell you.
It's a very interesting testimony because I feel like nowadays and I did what God told me isn't that common. Like, it's um a lot of times I feel like we need, or at least I need, uh, some incessant reminder and prodding and poking to say, go, go, do this, do this, do this. It's not as simple as, and I did what I was told. No.
Yeah.
So I've always wondered about, one of the things I always remember as a kid is when Moses goes to the burning bush and he has to take off his shoes. In fact, there's a really cool song from like 2005 or so by Delirious called "Take Off Your Shoes." Um, One of the last albums they did before they retired. But it's an interesting look at the connection between taking off your shoes and just sort of falling on your face. But I always wondered about this, right? Because in the Bible, in the Moses encounter, you take off your shoes and you fall on the ground before the presence of God.
Mm.
And I go, well, what? Now my face is dirty too. And my clothes are dirty. Like, I've fallen on the dirt. What was the point of taking off my shoes?
Yeah.
That's all you got?
Sorry, I'm trying to because the commentaries talk about this being um a Christophany.
I don't agree with that.
No, I don't agree with it either. I don't agree with it.
Okay, so what she's talking about, um, in the Bible, prior to the incarnation, so prior to when Christ actually is born on earth, there are a few times when we see, as far as we can tell, a sort of like embodiment, a physical presence that is God the Father or is Jesus. They're never super definitive, right? Like I can't think of one that is 100% certain this is God in a physical form.
Most people think that the time with Abraham and the three visitors
Yeah, that's
is
one of the ones that's
definite.
probably like the highest, like 95%,
Yeah.
if not a little bit more than that. And the reason I think it's not definitive is there's a bit of a disconnection between the three people who walk up who seem like strangers and the one that stays behind, and then a dialogue with God. And so you get this like Abram's bargaining with God,
Right.
but it doesn't, and this might just be the way that I see it, but when I see this conversation, I feel a shift from the way Abram was talking to the messengers, the three travelers or strangers, whoever,
Mhm.
into this like, all right, now I'm talking to God. I'm looking at Sodom and I'm looking up to God, and we're bargaining for how many holy people there have to be to save the city. But when any of these encounters, so in Genesis, gosh, what is it, like 21 or so, prior to the fall of Sodom and Gomorrah, you have this encounter with Abram and three strangers.
Yeah.
And it's when they come and tell him he's going to have a son, and they feed him a lot of bread, feed these three strangers, and two of them go off and they take out Sodom and Gomorrah. The third one of these strangers is thought to be a theophany. So it's a representation in a humanoid sort of image or form of God prior to the incarnation. I don't think that prior part is actually like required for the definition, but that's typically how we see it. And then if it's Jesus specifically, then it's a Christophany. One of the things that I worry about with these sorts of images is it's sort of like the red letters, right? They get too much of an emphasis. So just thinking about it, like there's a Christophany. I think some people believe the fourth man in the fiery furnace is a Christophany.
Yeah.
It's not definitive. It just says it's Nebuchadnezzar who says, or his guard who says, and the fourth one looks to be the son of the gods. And you kind of go, that's got to be Jesus. It could very well be, and it doesn't have any theological problems if it is. But like the red letters, when you say something is God, it somehow separates it from the rest of this book, which is the word of God in and of itself, like completely. The main problem I have with this one, though,
Sorry, it was 18, not 21.
18? Okay, sorry. Genesis 18 is the three messengers. Um, the main problem I have with this being a Christophany is Jesus, I don't think would introduce himself as the commander of God's army.
Yeah. Well, why?
The king of a nation probably wouldn't introduce himself as the commander of the army. Like, it's kind of misleading, is it not? And Jesus won't lie.
Right.
The commander of an army is, at least the way I understand it, which I recognize as human and not God's wisdom, but the commander of the army is a position that is subservient to the king. I feel like calling this a Christophany is a bit of, it means this person's lying, this being. Joshua would have understand the leader of the army to be a general.
I think people think because in the original language that he calls him my lord, not. But I don't think the word lord as is calling. I think it's like the title, like you would say in Old English,
Yeah.
my lord. But I
In this translation, he doesn't say that.
no, not
He
in this
says,
translation.
"What do you want your servant to do?"
Mm-hmm.
Lord is typically just a respectful title of somebody who is in a higher position of authority than you.
Yeah.
Joseph would have probably called Potiphar his lord,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like it's not in this setting abnormal title. The reason that it's so foreign for us, though, is because we don't have those positions, right? So when we talk about Lord, it's exclusively about Godship.
I'm not really sure any that this fellow, and I'm assuming that the Lord's army is nearby. Why else would he be there and talk about
Mm.
being the leader of an army and not have his army nearby? But it's not mentioned again.
He continues to talk to Joshua, does he not? Or he meets Joshua on the way to Jericho here briefly.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't think this individual or the group that he leads, I don't think we hear any more about them. So why is it there?
I have a theory.
Okay.
I think you're right. Where the commander of the army is usually not far behind.
Yeah.
Historically, you would have drawn up battle lines, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have the two armies. There's a ton of etiquette in ancient war.
Mm-hmm.
They would have come, they would have set up, like we see in David and Goliath's story, where the Philistines have their line and the Hebrews have their line. And the generals would come out and negotiate.
Right.
And if they can't come to terms, then it's time to fight. The commander of God's army has showed up to negotiate. What we see in the book of Daniel is there are there are fights and wars between armies happening that we cannot see around towns
It's not just
constantly.
Daniel, isn't it? Which one? Elijah?
Yeah, so I was just getting that, yeah. But Daniel, at the end of Daniel, a messenger comes to Daniel, right?
Gabriel?
Gabriel,
I think so.
right? It's one of the few named angels we have. And he says, "I'm sorry it took so long to get here. I was fighting the prince of Babylon,
Yes.
and I had to wait for Michael to come and relieve me so I could come talk to you."
Right. Which is kind like I got goosebumps
It's
just now.
such a cool passage.
You've been included in this spiritual realm of things that man
Very few
can't
people
see.
get access to.
Yeah.
And so Elijah seems to live in a way where he can see this,
Right.
right? His faith and holiness is at such a place where he is able to see some of this.
Mm-hmm.
So when he walks out of his house and he sees the army of King Ahab around him, I think it's Ahab, he says, I'm not concerned because I also see the army of the Lord around them.
Yes.
I wonder if the fall of Jericho, with their marching
Yes,
around,
I was thinking that.
isn't just a like miraculous and the walls fell down, but
That
is
that the army
representative
knocked it down.
of the defeat of the army of darkness that is over Jericho.
Right.
So that they're walking around
This is
patiently
just our
waiting.
thoughts.
Yes, patiently. And I don't have a better name for it than army of darkness. That's a terrible name because it immediately, I think, in an American mind goes, oh, poke 'em and stuff, right? No, it's not.
Right.
The Bible makes it very clear that there are evil powers fighting, warring constantly in realms that we can't see.
It's Daniel chapter 10, if anyone's interested.
Daniel 10, the angel shows up. It is Gabriel.
Hold on, I'm getting there. Hmm. He does talk about Michael.
Is he named? I think it's just assumed he's Gabriel, right?
I'm not sure. I can't find his name.
I don't think he's named. I think it's like tradition.
No, it says Michael came to me.
No, I'm saying the one that's talking to Daniel is.
I'm trying to see. Oh yeah, you're right. I think it's understood to be Gabriel, but I can't find his name anywhere.
Gabriel's name doesn't exist in many places in the Bible, and because it's one of the names, so this is really, really a tangent. We'll talk about this
Oh,
another
sorry.
day.
In chapter 9, it says, "As I was praying, Gabriel
Yeah,
came swiftly to me."
it's one of the few named ones. I would say go look it up, and while you're at it, try do some research and see if you can find the title of archangel in the Bible somewhere.
I don't think you can. I thought that wasn't a word you could find.
I don't think it is either. But if you're looking for information on angels, the Book of Revelation and Jude and Daniel are some of the better places to see like how they interact with humans a little bit. Anyways, and maybe Peter talks about it a bit too. So I think the walls fall when the Lord's army claims victory over whatever evil forces are there.
I'm curious what the Hebrew people would have understood. Would they have like just this tiny interaction of Joshua with the commander of the Lord's army? Would they have understood that they would have been with them as they were marching around and they would have helped them somehow
Maybe.
with the walls coming down?
I mean, they seem pretty certain in their pledge to listen to whatever Joshua says, and I think that's because they believe Joshua was receiving words from God.
I don't know if they were to understand that this group was helping them, because I can't understand what this interaction is for unless that they were there to help them.
I agree. I think that's good logic. One of the things so whenever we talk about stuff like this, whenever anybody talks about angelic realms, like Paul says, right, he talks very plainly about the fact that the war that's fought that's important in the world isn't against soldiers of other humans. It's against the principalities of Satan.
Yes.
Right? Whose main goal is collateral damage, right? That's his thing. He knows he's going to lose and he just sets up to like chop people down along the way. Whenever we talk about this, I think it is a very natural reaction for people, Christians, humans, especially if you've grown up in the Western world, to sort of just like bat it away as fairy tale or nonsense.
Right.
And it's a big shame because we are challenged as Christians to be able to cast out the work of Satan in our faith in Jesus. And most of us probably couldn't do that, I don't think.
Yeah.
But it is a real thing. Like it's very much a part of it. And it's not that it's gone. And my point in saying all this is a lot of people will try to sort of like dismiss it because that's old Bible stuff. That's not happening now.
Yeah.
But what I try to keep in mind, no matter what you're reading in the Bible, is God doesn't change.
Right.
There's not an Old Testament God and a New Testament God, right? He's always the same. And he doesn't change. And I don't think there's a grand shift in defeat or victory or whatever in the spiritual realm from 10 AD to 2000 BC to 2000 AD, right? Like I don't see any logic to show that it changes, because if you look at Revelation, it's still, the fight's still going on when it's all over.
Right.
So it stands to reason that if this stuff is happening, it's happening in Daniel, then it's also happening in Joshua, and it's also happening now. So the Hebrew people, I very well could have thought, well, if the commander of God's army is here, the army must be here too. We don't know.
Yeah.
I think it's good logic. And so when you think through these things, if you don't have time to study and to find commentaries, like, just lean on that. God doesn't change. Sorry. So there's a logic to the Bible that you can sort of follow throughout the whole thing. Is this in keeping with who God is, as he doesn't change?
Right. Yeah.
We don't have time for 6.
Yeah.
That's fine. We'll do it next time. I have to prepare to go to camp. Is there anything else you would like to add?
No, I enjoy that.
Yeah, it's good. I like Joshua. It's a fun book.
Yeah.
Would you like to pray us out, my dear?
Yes. Thank you, Heavenly Father, for a time in your word. Please continue to help us to grow. Help us to grow closer to you, Lord. Thank you for blessing us. Thank you for loving us. Thank you most of all for Jesus. It's in his name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Well, thanks everybody, and we will see you next time.
Yes.
Have a great week.